Hey everyone, ready for something a little different. Today we're gonna dive into cult dynamics.
Ooh, cult
Yeah,
dynamics.
so hold on. Before you start picturing, robes and chanting rituals,
Right.
this isn't about that. This deep dive is more about
And psychology.
yeah, exactly. The psychology of influence. How do groups work? How do they form?
Why do people follow?
Yeah, and
Wow.
exactly. And how can we maybe even use some of these principles in everyday life? Ethically, of course.
Ethically, of course.
Right. But to guide us on this journey,
We have a book.
we do. We have this book called Building Your Cult by Dantalion Jones.
Interesting title.
It is, huh? It is. And don't worry, we're not, advocating starting a cult or anything like that.
Yeah, I know.
But Jones has some really surprising insights I think you can use.
For sure.
Yeah, so to kick things off, he kind of reframes this whole cult concept.
Right.
He argues that any group with a strong shared set of beliefs
Practices.
yeah, could technically be considered a cult.
A cult.
I mean, think about it, like Harley Davidson enthusiasts,
Oh, yeah.
diehard Apple fans,
Sports fans.
Swords fans, yeah. Maybe even like that online community you're really into.
Absolutely.
And, they might not fit that traditional image we have of a cult.
Right. Robes and chanting.
Right, exactly. But
Yeah.
but they often show that same, like, intense loyalty.
Yeah, that's strong cohesion.
Yeah, and Jones calls these invisible cults. Have you ever thought about that? Like, you might be part of one and not even realize it.
It's true. It's true. I think a lot of us are.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
So then the question becomes what makes these groups tick? What do they have in common?
What's that common thread?
And Jones really points to the leader.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and specifically their mindset as like a key factor.
Mindset.
Yeah. He actually identifies 4 types of cult leaders, but what's really interesting is that it's less about what they do and more about
Their inner world.
yeah, their inner world. It's like their beliefs, their attitude.
Okay, so what's one of the things that stands out about these leaders?
Well, one that really stuck with me is this idea of like radical self-acceptance.
Oh,
Now hold on. This isn't about being like narcissistic or arrogant.
right.
It's more about having this like unshakable belief in yourself.
Even when people are negative or
Yeah, even when you're facing like negativity or doubt,
yeah.
it's about having that inner strength to like push forward with your vision.
I like that.
Yeah, and it's like that saying, what other people think of you is none of your business. But Jones takes it even further.
Oh, really?
He suggests these self-praise exercises.
Will praised.
Yeah, literally like singing your own praises in the mirror.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it sounds kind of out there, right? But it highlights how important it is to like really own your worth.
Okay, I see that.
Yeah, and this applies to leadership in general, I think.
For sure, for sure.
Because, if you don't believe in yourself, why should anyone else?
That's true. That's a good point.
But of course, there's a flip side to this, right? Even with the best intentions, that strong self-belief can sometimes,
Turn into ego.
yeah, it can turn into ego if it's not kept in check.
Right, you need that balance.
Exactly. So checks and balances are key. Even for like the most charismatic leaders, you need those people in your life who can kind of give you that reality check.
Yeah, the honest feedback.
Yeah, exactly. Tell you when you're maybe going down the wrong path.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears a bit. Jones talks about this concept of the plan.
The plan.
And this is where it gets a little different from like your typical goal setting advice.
Okay, how so?
Well, he distinguishes between the outer plan, which is all about, tangible goals, like things you want to achieve in the world,
Okay,
and then the inner plan.
the inner plan.
Yeah, which focuses more on like how you want to live your life.
Regardless of the outcome.
Exactly. It's about your values, your character.
Interesting.
Yeah. He uses Gandhi as like the perfect example.
Oh, okay.
So Gandhi's outer plan was freeing India from British rule, right? Very specific.
Measurable.
Measurable, yeah. But his inner plan, his commitment to nonviolence and like spiritual principles that fueled his actions even more powerfully,
I see what you mean.
it makes you think, right, what would your inner plan be? Like if you strip away all the specific goals, what kind of person do you want to be? How do you want to show up in the world?
That's a good question to ask yourself.
Yeah. And Jones argues that this inner plan, it's what gives your actions real meaning.
So it's like the foundation.
It's like building a house, right?
Okay.
Your outer plan is like the blueprint, the layout.
Yeah.
But your inner plan, that's the foundation, the materials you use, the overall feel you're going for, and a strong foundation that can make all the difference.
For sure. For sure.
And speaking of foundations, Jones takes this inner plan concept even further.
Yeah.
He suggests framing your life as like an epic saga.
An epic saga.
Yeah, like a story, like a hero's journey.
Oh, okay, I can see where he's going with this.
I love a good story. So this really resonated with me. And he's saying that we all have a story to tell, right? Even the seemingly mundane parts of our lives, they can be seen as part of this like grand adventure.
We're all the heroes of our own story.
Exactly. And he uses the classic hero's journey framework to illustrate this. You know, you have the call to adventure, you face trials.
Come back transformed.
Yeah, you return with newfound wisdom.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how much this resonates with stories we see everywhere, like in movies and books.
It's like we're hardwired for these narratives.
Yeah. So how can you frame your own EVUN life story using this framework?
What challenges have you overcome?
What lessons have you learned? Thinking about your life this way can give it so much meaning, and it can also help you identify like your values.
Your strengths.
Yeah, and ultimately like your unique contribution to the world. Okay, so we've got our inner plan, our epic saga is unfolding.
What's next?
Now let's talk about building influence. Like, how do you create that cohesive group? Jones lays out this framework of purpose, mythos, and structure.
Purpose, mythos, structure.
And honestly, it applies to way more than just those groups we traditionally label as cults.
I bet.
Yeah, think about it. Like your company's mission statement, the stories you tell about your brand, the hierarchy and rules that shape how things run, it's all there.
It's everywhere.
It really is. You see these elements in businesses and social movements, even families.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then Jones dives into some specific tactics used to build influence, and some of them are a little eyebrow-raising.
Oh, really? Like what?
While there's elitism strategies,
Leading.
using commitment and consistency to gain compliance,
Okay.
even love bombing. These are powerful tools, but they also come with some ethical considerations.
For sure. We need to be careful with those.
Absolutely. We'll definitely be diving into the ethics of influence later on. But for now, let's just take a closer look at some of these strategies. What stands out to you?
Well, the elitism strategy, that's a classic one, right?
It is. It's about creating that sense of exclusivity, making your group feel special.
Better than those outside.
Yeah, better than those outside the circle. Think about like velvet ropes at nightclubs or limited edition products. It's all about tapping into that desire to belong to something unique.
Right. Scarcity and desirability.
Exactly. And Jones points out how this can be amplified by things like, you know, difficult initiation processes, secret knowledge shared only among members, even creating like mysterious rumors that add to the mystique.
Oh, wow. It's like building a wall.
Yeah, it's like building a wall, real or perceived, between the in-group and everyone else.
Interesting.
And then there's the principle of commitment and consistency.
Oh, that's a good one.
It is. It's sneaky because it plays on our desire to be seen as like reliable and true to our word.
All right, want to be consistent.
Yeah. So the idea is that once someone agrees to like a small request, they're more likely to agree to bigger ones later on.
Oh, like the foot in the door technique.
Exactly. And that brings us to love bombing. Have you heard of that one?
Oh, yeah, that's a popular one these days.
It is. It can be tricky because on the surface, it seems harmless, right? Who doesn't want to be showered with affection and praise?
Right.
But it's the intention behind it that matters.
I see, yeah.
Jones is really cautious about this. He says you have to recognize the potential for manipulation, especially when someone's vulnerable.
Yeah, you can't take advantage of people.
Exactly. He really stresses using these tactics responsibly, always with the well-being of the individual in mind.
With their best interests at heart.
Yeah. So we've gone from reframing cults to understanding leadership mindsets, crafting personal plans, and even exploring some of the tools used to build influence. It's a lot to process, right?
It is. It really makes you think.
It does. It makes you wonder, how can we use these insights ethically and effectively in our own WN lives?
That's the big question.
It is. And we're just getting started. In part 2, we'll delve even deeper into building your cult.
Can't wait.
We'll explore concepts like the motivational imperative, the power of doctrine and ritual, and even take a responsible look at the mechanics of addiction.
Sounds fast.
It is going to be good. See you then. Okay, so we're back, digging deeper into building your cult.
More cult dynamics.
Yes. Last time we were talking about, how Jones defines a cult, the leader's mindset, those influence tactics. There's a lot to think about.
It really is. It makes you see things differently.
It does. But this next concept, the motivational imperative, this one's kind of a curveball.
Oh, how so?
Well, Jones, he starts by talking about like aliens, programming their human servants.
Aliens.
Yeah, it sounds crazy, right? But stick with me. He paints this picture of these aliens programming their human servants with this one, like, overriding goal
And what's that?
to serve and protect no matter what.
Okay, so like a prime directive kind of thing.
Exactly, like a prime directive. It's very sci-fi.
It is.
But he's not saying that aliens are actually controlling us. It's
Mhm.
more of like a mental model.
A thought experiment.
Yeah, to help us understand how powerful motivations can shape our actions.
Yes.
Like, think about it, what really drives you. What gets you out of bed in the morning? Is it a burning desire for success? A deep need to help others?
Or maybe something else entirely.
Yeah, maybe it's something less tangible, like finding your purpose, or even just like wanting to make a difference in the world.
Right.
And Jones argues that these core motivations, when they're strong enough, they can become like an internal compass.
Guiding our choices.
Exactly, even when things get tough.
Yeah.
And he gives some really inspiring examples of what he calls positive motivational imperatives, like, I am loved, or I act towards my life purpose.
I like those.
Yeah, they're powerful, right? It makes you realize how important those underlying beliefs are.
Those beliefs we hold about ourselves and the world.
Exactly. But there's a flip side to this,
It's
too.
always a flip side.
Right. Jones is really cautious about trying to impose a motivational imperative on someone else.
Like trying to control their motivation.
Yeah, basically trying to program them like those aliens.
Okay, I see where he's going with this.
Yeah, it's like you can't force someone to be motivated in a certain way.
People have their own free will.
Exactly. We're not robots.
Mm.
And when someone tries to force their will on you, it can backfire big time. It can lead to resentment.
Rebellion.
Yeah, even worse, like manipulation and control.
So what's the alternative?
Well, Jones talks about the importance of inspiring others rather than controlling them. It's about appealing to their values, their aspirations.
Showing them the possibilities.
Exactly. And this is where ethical leadership comes in.
Right.
It's about recognizing that everyone has their own unique path, their own motivations.
And respecting that.
Yeah, respecting that. And, Jones even brings up this ethical dilemma of using hypnosis to create a motivational imperative in someone else.
Hypnosis.
Yeah, it's like, even if you could technically influence someone on that deep level, should you?
It's a tough question.
It is. It raises all these questions about free will and the responsibility we have for our own choices.
It's complicated.
It is. But I think Jones's point is that understanding the power of motivation, both in ourselves and others, is crucial for navigating the world ethically.
I agree. It's about respecting each other's autonomy.
Exactly. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about something else.
Okay.
Jones talks about doctrine and ritual. And most people associate those words with religion, right?
Yeah, I do.
But Jones takes a much broader view. He defines doctrine as any set of rules or beliefs that guide a group's behavior.
So it's not just about religious texts.
No, it's everywhere. Think about your company handbook, the code of conduct at your gym, even those like unspoken rules your family has. It's all doctrine.
Interesting.
Right. And what's interesting is that Jones, he emphasizes both simplicity and depth in effective doctrine.
Okay, so how does that work?
Well, he uses examples like the 10 Commandments or the
Mhm.
12 steps of AA.
I see.
They're pretty straightforward on the surface, right?
Yeah.
But they've generated centuries of interpretation and debate.
There's a lot to unpack
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's about having those core principles that are easy to grasp, but also have layers of meaning that people can connect with on a deeper level.
So it's like keep it simple, but don't dumb it down.
Exactly. You want something that's clear and actionable, but also resonates with people's values and aspirations.
Okay, so let's bring this back to the individual.
Yeah.
What would your personal doctrine be? Like, what are those guiding principles that shape your actions and decisions?
That's a great question. It's a good exercise in self-reflection. All right, now we're getting towards the end of the book, and Jones tackles a pretty sensitive topic,
What's that?
addiction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's very upfront about the fact that some of the principles we've been discussing, if they're misused, they could contribute to creating or manipulating addictive behaviors.
Right, there's always that potential for harm.
Yeah, but he's very clear about responsible use.
Okay, good.
So he starts by breaking down like the core components of addiction.
Okay.
He talks about the pull, that impulsive desire for something, and then the conflict between that desire and the potential negative consequences.
So like knowing something is bad for you, but still wanting it.
Exactly. And then the cycle of repetition and reinforcement.
So like getting hooked on something.
Yeah, basically. And think about it, haven't we all experienced that struggle at some point? Whether it's with food, social media.
Or something else entirely.
Yeah, for sure. He uses these examples that are really relatable, like craving a certain food even though you know it's not healthy, or spending hours scrolling social media when you have other things you should be doing. It's that feeling of being hooked.
Even when you know it's not good for you.
Yeah. But then, and this is where the ethical considerations come in, he cautions against intentionally using these techniques to create harmful addictions in others.
Right. You can't exploit people's vulnerabilities.
Exactly. He talks about how people with a history of trauma or a deep sense of emptiness can be particularly susceptible to addiction.
And that's where it becomes really dangerous.
Yeah, it's a big ethical no-no to exploit that. So it's a reminder that these tools, they have the potential for both good and harm.
Right. Two sides of the same coin.
And understanding how they work, how they can be misused, that's the first step in protecting ourselves and others.
So knowledge is power.
It really is. So we've covered a lot of ground in this section, the motivational imperative, the power of doctrine and ritual, and I even delved into the complex world of addiction. It's fascinating stuff, right?
It is. It's like peering behind the curtain to see how human behavior works.
It really is. But there's one final and perhaps the most crucial aspect of building your cult that we haven't touched on yet.
What's that?
The ethical dimension. Knowing the tools is one thing, but using them wisely and responsibly, that's what truly matters. Okay, so here we are, the final part of our deep dive into Dantalion Jones's Building Your Cult.
It's been quite a journey.
It has, from the psychology of leadership all the way to the mechanics of addiction.
Peeling back those layers of influence.
We've seen a lot, but now we're at like the heart of it all.
The ethical dimension.
Yeah, the ethics of influence.
It's like Jones is handing us this toolbox,
Yeah.
Filled with all these powerful tools.
Right.
But he's also giving us a big warning label.
He is. These tools can be used to build or destroy, to empower or exploit.
The choice is ultimately ours.
And he really emphasizes that responsibility. In fact, he dedicates a whole chunk of the book to ethics. He argues that the goal should be using these principles for good, for personal growth, positive change, that kind of thing.
Right, not for manipulating or controlling others.
Exactly. It's about making the world a better place. And it's refreshing, honestly. So many books on influence, they just focus on the how-to.
The tactics.
Yeah, but they don't really address the should you.
The ethics.
Yeah, Jones is very upfront about that, like manipulating others for personal gain or taking advantage of someone's vulnerability.
That's a hard no.
It's a hard no. He even suggests that learning these techniques can actually make you less likely to use them for harm.
Oh, interesting.
Oh.
Why is that?
Because you become aware of the potential consequences. It's like you see the strings, the levers, the whole machinery of influence.
And you realize how easily it can be misused.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a built-in safeguard.
I like that.
The deeper you understand the human psyche, the more empathy you develop.
Yeah.
And suddenly messing with people's heads, it just doesn't seem so appealing anymore.
Right. You see the potential for harm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we navigate this ethical tightrope? What guidance does Jones offer?
Well, he starts with personal responsibility.
Okay.
We all have a choice in how we use this knowledge.
Right.
We can't blame others or external circumstances.
We have to own our choices.
Exactly. He calls out those false reasoning processes we use to justify bad behavior.
Right. What?
Like minimizing our actions, making excuses, playing the victim.
Oh, yeah. We all do that sometimes.
We do. It's like he's holding up a mirror saying, look, you're accountable for your choices.
Even when they're tough.
Especially when they're tough. And he ties this back to the inner plan.
Right, that foundation we were talking
Right.
about.
Yeah, developing a strong sense of personal values, like a code of conduct that guides your actions.
That's essential for ethical influence.
It's like having that internal compass,
That points you in the right direction.
even when there are tempting shortcuts. And remember that inner plan, it's not static. It should be constantly evolving.
As we grow and learn.
Exactly. It's a journey, not a destination.
And sometimes that journey takes us through some murky territory.
It does. The world of influence can be tricky.
Especially when you're dealing with people who might not share your ethical principles.
So what do we do then? How do we protect ourselves from manipulation?
While still staying true to our own values.
Right.
It's a tough balance. Jones talks about setting boundaries, recognizing when someone's trying to manipulate you or take advantage of your knowledge.
Yet trusting your gut.
Knowing when to walk away from a situation that feels off.
And surrounding yourself with good people.
Yeah, people who uphold similar values. It's like building a community of accountability.
A support system for ethical growth.
I like that. And speaking of growth, Jones ends the book with a piece of advice that might seem a little out there.
Well, what's that?
He says, learn hypnosis.
Hypnosis. Thought we were trying to avoid manipulating people.
Right. But he's not talking about swinging pocket watches and controlling minds.
Okay, so what kind of hypnosis?
Self-hypnosis.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, using those techniques to master your own motivation.
So it's about understanding your own motivations, your own patterns,
And then using those insights to create positive change in your life.
to improve yourself.
Exactly. He argues that self-hypnosis can be incredibly powerful for overcoming limiting beliefs, boosting your confidence.
Aligning your actions with your values.
And he encourages exploring both traditional techniques like guided visualizations.
In the more covert methods of NLP.
Yeah, NLP can be really powerful for subtly shifting your thoughts and behaviors. So it's like taking all the tools of influence and turning them inwards.
Becoming the architect of your own inner world.
I love that. And that's really what this whole deep dive has been about, right?
Empowering the individual.
Giving you the tools to understand and shape your own reality. We've explored so much: the mechanics of influence, the psychology of leadership, the complexities of addiction, and of course, the ethical responsibility that comes with this knowledge. So where do we go from here? What's the takeaway for our listeners?
Jones leaves us with a challenge. How can you apply these insights to your life in a way that is both empowering and ethical? Understanding influence is one thing, but wielding it wisely, that's what truly matters.
So keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep striving to be the most ethical and impactful version of yourself. That's the real legacy of building your cult. Not creating followers, but empowering individuals.
Well said. Until next time, happy learning.